Hey everybody, on this one we're doing 1.3 Math Excel Day 2, and this is problem number 18 on section 1.3. So for your f of x you have 4 minus x, whose domain is all reals because it's linear, and your g of x is 1 over x, so that's rational, it's all reals, x not 0. And on this one we're doing g minus f. So we're doing 1 over x minus parentheses 4 minus x. So you may remember from our previous video I said put parentheses if you're subtracting, and that's what you'll need here. So we want to distribute a negative 1. So that'd be negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. And negative 1 times negative x is positive x. And so that's your answer. Then your domain would be all reals except for x not 0 because it's not defined at 0. In other words, when you put a 0 in there, it gives an error in your calculator. So that's how you do number 18. On the next one, number 21, you have x squared and x minus 3. This time you're doing the little circle, which means composite, and you have a negative 5. So what it really means is you're doing f of g of negative 5. So again, we work inside out, so we do our g of negative 5 first. So negative 5 minus 3 is negative 8. Then you do f of that answer. So f of negative 8. Well, your f function is something squared, so we do negative 8 squared. And that'd be 64, because it's like negative 8 times negative 8. On our next one, we have a linear function 4x minus 1, and this is also linear because it's like 1/3 x minus 4/3. In other words, x is on top, not on bottom, so it's not rational. Rational 1 over x has x on bottom. So it's not that it's just a fraction, it's a fraction with x on bottom when it's rational. So these are both linear. So we want f composite h, so that's f circle h with a 2. So that means you do your h of 2 first. And so we put 2 here. 2 minus 4 divided by 3 gives you negative 2/3. And then you do f of that answer. So you do your 4 times your negative 2/3 and then minus 1. So that'd be negative 8/3 minus 1. If you want to do it by hand, you make it negative 3/3. And then negative 8 minus 3 is negative 11. And you keep your denominator the same. So that's how I worked it out by hand. If you'd rather just use your calculator, you can. You say 4 times parentheses negative 2/3 and then minus 1. Remember, it gives you your answers in fraction form by default, which is what we wanted. Now, just as a reminder, if you needed it as a decimal, highlight it, then you go menu, number, and then there's where you'd say decimal. So negative 3.6 repeat. Now, we don't want it in that form, we want it in the fraction form. So negative 11/3. Alright, so now we have extra practice D. And so this has 2x squared minus 21x plus 27. And then the other function is x minus 9. So this is where you put your numerator function here and your denominator function there. So it doesn't look alike, but remember we need to say, can the numerator be factored or the expression simplified? So how we do that is you can try different things like 2x and then x and then work it out trial and error. So you could try factoring. To me personally, I don't like factoring if it's a number other than 1. You know, like just if it were like this, I could try to factor it, but if it's a number in front, I would either use synthetic division or long division. So for synthetic division, what you do is you see your x minus 9 here, you change your sign and you just make it 9. So just change your sign, and then you take your 2, your negative 21, and your 27. So synthetic division involves adding. And this is the method most students prefer. So think of this as 2 plus 0 is 2. Okay, so now you have your 2 here, and you go 9 times 2 is 18. Then you go negative 21 plus 18, and you get negative 3. So that's how come I have a negative 3 there. And then you take 9 times negative 3, and you get negative 27. Then 27 minus 27 is 0. I always darken this and, like that. And if you get a remainder of 0, then that means it did factor properly. And so then this would be 2x minus 3. So you would get 2x minus 3 with x not equal to 9. So that means the domain is all reals except x equal 9. So that's how most students would do it. The other way is with long division. This involves subtraction. And so you put your x minus 9, which is on bottom, on the outside, and you put your numerator on the inside. And then you say, what times x gives you 2x squared? And it'd be 2x. So 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times negative 9 is negative 18x. So then you draw your line, you are subtracting, so these have to cancel out. This is the tricky part. You go negative 21 minus a negative 18, or plus 18. So that step right there is where a lot of students make mistakes. They would just say negative 21 minus 18 is negative 39. But you do negative 21 plus 18 and you get negative 3. So this will be negative 3x, and then bring down the plus 27. So then you go, what times x gives you negative 3x? Well, it's negative 3. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 9 is positive 27. So if your signs match like this, then when you're subtracting, it will all cancel out, and you get a 0. So you have your 2x minus 3, which was the same thing we got here. Okay, so that's extra practice D. Extra practice E looks like you're linear with your quadratic, and you're doing f circle g of negative 7. So you do g of negative 7 first. So you do your negative 7 squared plus 3. 49 plus 3 is 52. And then you do your f of 52, so negative 3 times 52 minus 1, and you get negative 157. So again, the goal is work inside out. You do g because it's closest to the number. So do that first. That's the way to remember it. Okay, and then on extra practice F, you have a linear with a quadratic, and you're doing plus. So this time your operation is addition. So you just write this one down, plus write this one down. You don't have to do parentheses if it's addition. And then your x squared goes first, and then you got 3x minus x gives you 2x. And then you go 2 plus 1 is 3. So then this would be your answer, and it's all reals. Then you have your extra practice G. You have your 3x plus 2 and your x squared minus x plus 4. This time you're doing g minus f. So again, on this, you're subtracting, and it's more than one term per function. So I just did parentheses around the whole thing, just to be safe. You don't really need it in the first one, but then on this, negative 3x goes there. Negative times 2 is negative 2. Basically distributing negative 1. So then you go x squared, then negative x minus 3x gives you negative 4x, and 4 minus 2 is 2. So all real numbers, again, because it's quadratic. So be very careful when you're distributing negative 1. Okay, it just changes the sign for both. Okay, and now for extra practice H, you have 4x minus 4, and they tell you to do f circle f of 0. So when you're doing f circle f, that does not mean f circle f. Got to do my math jokes sometime. It means f of the f of x function. And we know x would be 0 in this case. So we do f of 0, so we go 4 times 0 minus 4 is negative 4. So that's your first answer. And then f of that answer, f of negative 4, would be 4 times negative 4 minus 4, which is negative 20. Okay, so that's if you get it with f of 0. Now I also redid this with f of 8. Because I worked it 2 different times. If the front part were the same, but then you have 8 here instead, how it changes is you do your f of 8 first. 4 times 8 minus 4 is 28. Then you take your 28, plug it in. 4 times 28 minus 4, you get 108. So if you did one with 0 in this expression, you'd get negative 20. If you did 8 with the same expression, you get 108. So the numbers are quite different. Y'all are going to have different numbers, and so just pay really close attention. Sometimes your coefficients or constants change, and that makes a big difference. Okay, now on extra practice I, we have 2x minus 5 and x plus 6. And it wants you to do f of g of x and g of f of x. So when you do f of g of x, that means you're going to say 2 times something minus 5 and plug this x plus 6 into where it was x. So that's how that works. Then you do 2 times x is 2x, 2 times 6 is 12, and just bring down your negative 5. So then 12 minus 5 is 7. So you get 2x plus 7. So that's if it's f of g of x. You start writing your f function. Start writing f function and plug g in for x. So that's what you do on this. Now if it's g of f of x, you start writing your g function. So it's something plus 6, and then you plug in your 2x minus 5 right there. So here you do 2x minus 5 plus 6, so that's 2x plus 1. So this answer was 2x plus 7, and this answer was 2x plus 1. So that's all you really need to know for the Math Excel, but if both were the same answer, then they would be inverses. And we would do inverses later and also in pre-calculus. Okay, so if you do f of g, you don't always get the same thing as if you did g of f. These are usually not the same answers. Okay? All right, that's the end of that video. Have a good day.